Hello again. Welcome back. This is the first installment in a reply to Saved But Not Perfect, who recently posted the longest comment in the history of the channel. Now, thank you, Saved, for the comment. I appreciate the passion. What I'm going to do to address your questions is use 4 or 5 short videos so you can chew on bite-sized pieces. Now, when full preterists argue the position, we do so with Scripture. We zealously adhere to the hermeneutics of letting Scripture interpret Scripture and audience relevance. We strive to identify how the original audiences of the prophets, Jesus, and the inspired writers of the Gospels and epistles, how they understood the message. When we read the Scriptures, we are reading someone else's mail. The Scriptures are for us, but they were not written to us. Now, for some preliminary wisdom, I'll begin the response here, but first I want to address something fundamental. Confusing persecution happens today with therefore this prophecy is about today is not the same as exegesis. Here's what I mean. Matthew 24 opens with Jesus answering a specific question from specific disciples about a specific event, the destruction of the temple they were looking at, not about the end of all human history, about their generation. When Jesus says all these things must come to pass, he's not describing a timeline that extends 2,000 years into the future. He's describing conditions leading up to the AD 66 to 70 covenantal Aharit, the last end judgment on the faithless and crooked and perverse generation that was originally prophesied in Deuteronomy 32, the Song of Moses. Things like false messiahs, wars, famines, and persecution, all of which happened to first century Christians. Now, I hear you. Persecution does exist today. Chinese Christians are suffering. Christians globally face opposition. That's real and it's heartbreaking. But the existence of persecution in 2026 doesn't mean Matthew 24:9 remains unfilled. That's an illogical leap that ignores audience relevance. Jesus was speaking to his disciples then about their generation, not ours. Now, I want you to do this exercise. Look at the accounts of the Olivet discourse, Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. In Mark's version, we see this. Now, as he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled?" Now, imagine you're there on that day. Jesus' closest disciples ask you to come closer and take the minutes of the meeting. You agree. You are now seated at Jesus' feet, listening to every word. His disciples asked him what signs would precede his coming in the end of the age. In all 3 accounts, the signs are recorded in the Bible. Now, your minutes, no doubt, were used to assist the gospel writers. Wars, famines, earthquakes, the gospel preached to the whole world, the great tribulation, even Jesus' parousia. Hear this, Mark 13, 24, 27. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, and then he will send his angels and gather together his elect from the 4 winds, from the farthest part of earth to the farthest part of heaven, end quote. Very intriguing words. But then in verses 20 to 30, Jesus declares, "So you also, when you see these things happening, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place." The question for you is, do you believe them? In Luke's account, here verses 20 to 22. "But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those who are in her midst not depart, and let not those who are in the country enter her. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." Jesus said all the signs, in fact, all things written, all prophecy was fulfilled. Do you believe him? Notice who Jesus is speaking to. He is speaking to his closest disciples, teaching them the events leading up to the temple being destroyed in the end of the Old Covenant age. That includes everything listed in the Olivet Discourse as the all these things in Matthew 24:34, Mark 13:30, and Luke 21:32. Quote, "Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these takes place." Jesus gives the time indication. Now, this is a matter of faith. You may say, well, many do, Augustus. All those signs couldn't have happened. That's a response from someone who walks by sight. The disciples believed Jesus because the language they spoke back then was different than 21st century English. Hebrew and other ancient languages were figurative, full of metaphor and hyperbole and what's called apocalyptic decreation language. Now, I'll explain this more completely in a video to follow. If your first reaction to Jesus' crystal clear declaration concerning the first century timing of these events, that they couldn't possibly have happened, you're the one in unbelief. There's no hedging here. Now, I reacted the same way years ago. In fact, the majority of Christians know more of the creedal and denominational presupposition imposed on them than they do the scriptures because they are functionally biblically illiterate. Now, next video, we're going to address your concern with Matthew 24:14, the gospel being preached to the whole world. That's it for now.